Ada and Chloe taking the mic, exploring the world deep and bright. From mysteries to things you know, dive in with us, let's start the show. Deep dive, let's take a look. Stories untold like an open book. From M Publications, here we go. Adam and Chloe steal the show.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we really get into compelling sources, articles, research. Basically, we pull out the key insights for you.
That's the goal.
And today, we're stepping into a world that, well, many of us only glimpse from the outside. You know, the vibrant church life, powerful sermons, really passionate worship, that sense of community.
Yeah, it's a familiar picture for many.
But what if, just behind that pulpit, there's this hidden story? A story of silent struggle. Something rarely talked about.
That is precisely what we're going to unpack today. Our deep dive is centered on a really significant new book by Dr. Mchavi. It's called Beyond the Pulpit, The Silent Struggles of Pastors and the Church's Call to Care.
Right.
And look, this isn't just, another academic text. It's described as a raw, really empathetic look at the unseen challenges that Pentecostal and charismatic pastors face. It reveals layers of experience that, frankly, many people in the pews, maybe even some leaders, just don't grasp.
And what makes this book feel so, I guess, authentic is its foundation.
Right.
It's deeply personal. Dr. Mchavi isn't just observing. He's the son of Pastor R.J. Mchavi, who started his ministry way back in the 1960s.
Right, so he grew up in it.
Exactly. He saw firsthand the injustices, the silent struggles that can be woven into church leadership. He puts it beautifully. He says the book is meant to be a mirror, reflecting what's really going on, but also a map, kind of guiding us towards healing and, importantly, honor for these leaders.
It's that perspective, born from lived experience, that gives it such power. Dr. Mchavi's own journey. I mean, he started as a young musician, playing alongside his father, eventually inheriting some of those same battles against church politics, against marginalization. It gives him this incredible, unique insight.
You can feel that empathy.
Absolutely. He shares these really poignant stories, like about his father, who, despite being this pillar of resolve, faced rejection from within the church when he was just trying to get support for his son's Dr. Mchavi's higher education. Yeah, and ultimately, help came from people outside the faith. That kind of firsthand experience with systemic neglect, it really fuels his call for justice, for reform, within the institutions he clearly still loves.
That personal connection just makes the message hit harder, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that's really our mission here today in this deep dive. We want to pull back that curtain on the challenges, really try to understand the systemic issues that contribute to pastors feeling this way, and explore this urgent call for reformation within the church.
It's a crucial conversation.
So as we unpack Beyond the Pulpit, we really want to invite you, our listener, to think about what stands out to you. Have you seen these kinds of truths play out? Maybe in your own communities, your own churches? Let us know. Drop your thoughts, your questions in the comments. We're actually engaging live as we do this.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
And if you want to follow along more closely or just go deeper after this, you can grab a copy of Beyond the Pulpit right now at www.amazon.com, author Dr. N.D. Mchavi.
It's definitely worth the read. Because, as Dr. Mchavi stresses throughout the book, this isn't just about individual pastors feeling bad. When pastors are mistreated, when they're silenced, when they're just completely overburdened, the entire body of Christ suffers.
Right.
He says it very clearly, very powerfully. No shepherd should die in the field they faithfully served. That puts it starkly.
It absolutely does. It raises the stakes incredibly high.
Yeah. It's about the health, the integrity, the future of the church itself.
Okay, so let's start unpacking these hidden realities. Part one of the book really digs into this, starting with what Dr. Mchavi calls the weight of the collar. That phrase alone, it conjures up a pretty powerful image, doesn't it?
It really does. The clerical collar, it is a symbol of honor, of spiritual authority, of dedication. We see that. But the book paints it, paradoxically, as this invisible, often crushing burden.
How so? What's the burden?
Well, pastors are expected, almost subconsciously sometimes, to be these unwavering beacons of faith. Figures who are somehow immune to personal struggles, untouched by doubt, not burdened by just being human.
Like a superhuman expectation.
Exactly. It's almost mythical. And that sets them up for this profound internal conflict, this disconnect between the image and the reality.
So what does that look like in practice?
Yeah.
Just never showing weakness, pretending needs don't exist.
Yeah, pretty much. Dr. Mchavi really elaborates on this silent suffering. He talks about tears being hidden behind pulpits, about deep personal needs just being ignored behind these polished, often very eloquent sermons.
Hmm.
He highlights that stark contrast, the public image of spiritual power versus the private battle so many pastors are waging against, well, emotional burnout, constant financial instability, and deep psychological distress.
So they wear a mask.
They learn to wear a mask, absolutely. Maintaining that outward look of strength, of serenity, while inside they're grappling with immense pain. There's a quote that just captures it. The pulpit may be elevated, but the pain behind it often goes unseen.
That resonates. It feels like pastors are constantly carrying the weight of everyone else's sorrow, right? Broken marriages, illness, financial crises.
Absolutely. They're counseling people through the hardest times, sitting with families, facing the unimaginable, fielding desperate calls for help.
All while navigating their own trials, often completely alone.
And that is what Dr. Mchavi calls the sacred tension where destiny and difficulty collide. The calling, it's divine, it's deeply felt, but man, it can feel incredibly heavy when it's coupled with these overwhelming expectations and, crucially, a lack of real support.
It's a paradox.
A profound one. Chosen for this extraordinary purpose, yet feeling crushed by the weight of it, sometimes by the very systems meant to uphold them. They're shepherds meant to nurture the flock, but the question hangs in the air. Who shepherds the shepherd?
Right. And this constant giving, without being refilled or even acknowledged, it just sounds like a recipe for burnout.
It's a recipe for deep spiritual and emotional depletion.
Absolutely.
And that heaviness, that pressure, it often leads directly into the next area the book tackles, the financial tightrope, when calling collides with survival.
Ah, yes. This is where the irony just hits you square in the face.
How so?
Well, think about it. Prosperity, abundance, these are often preached, sometimes quite fervently, from the pulpit. Yet the very pastors delivering those messages might be living in this quiet, desperate financial despair themselves.
That disconnect must be incredibly painful.
It's a core problem Dr. Mchavi brings right into the light, and it's really hard to reconcile with the biblical idea of supporting those who minister, right?
Definitely.
He details these really specific, pervasive forms of exploitation. Pastors paid irregularly, sometimes with huge delays, or frankly, sometimes not paid at all for long stretches.
Seriously, not paid at all. It happens more than you'd think. And they're often expected to fund ministry initiatives, travel, materials, outreach events out of their own pockets which are usually pretty empty to begin with.
Right.
And then, adding insult to injury, they're often obligated, expected to tithe from those meager resources, even when they're struggling to feed their own families.
That's ethically questionable, to say the least.
And crucially, so many are left without basic benefits. Things most jobs take for granted. Medical aid, housing allowances, any kind of retirement plan. It's just not there.
That's a massive, unsustainable burden. The book points out for so many pastors, the church is their only paycheck.
Exactly. Which creates this lifestyle of profound financial uncertainty. Dr. Mchavi puts it powerfully. Budgeting is impossible, and survival is a week-by-week miracle.
It makes you think of Paul's words in 1 Timothy. The laborer deserves his wages.
Right. But for so many pastors, that feels less like a reality and more like this distant, maybe even impossible dream while they're just trying to survive day to day. It completely undermines their ability to just focus on the spiritual work.
And it must force them into impossible choices.
Agonizing dilemmas. Things no leader should face. You know, does the small offering collected this week go to fixing the leaking church roof that affects everyone? Or does it go to buying food for the pastor's kids who are hungry?
Oh, name.
Or should funds go to that vital mission outreach? Or pay for critical medication for a sick family member? These aren't hypotheticals. They're daily realities.
And that pressure creates this ethical compromise, doesn't it?
A profound one. Choosing between your family's basic needs and the perceived needs of the ministry or the institution.
And that leads right into what Dr. Mchavi calls the invisible muzzle.
Yes. This financial dependence, the book argues, it pressures pastors. Pressures them not to offend powerful donors, not to challenge the status quo, even if deep down they know they should, even if it means watering down the gospel message itself.
There's a quote in the book about this that really stays with you.
Which one?
When survival depends on silence, the truth becomes negotiable, and the gospel loses its authentic fire.
Oof. Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? It's a crisis of integrity, born from sheer necessity. The prophetic voice gets stifled because you need to keep the lights on.
How can you speak truth to power even within your own church, if your family's next meal depends on not upsetting the powerful.
Exactly. It's an insidious pressure. And it leads us right into the next hidden reality the book explores: the emotional toll, burnout, isolation, and mental health.
This feels like another paradox. Pastors are constantly pouring out spiritual support, emotional comfort, guidance,
Constantly giving?
but they're often doing it from empty cups, hiding their own needs, their own thirst. It sounds like this silent epidemic of depletion.
It really is. And sadly, many churches just fail to acknowledge it or address it properly. Dr. Mchavi highlights the alarming frequency of depression, anxiety, severe burnout among pastors.
And how are these issues typically handled?
That's the tragic part. These genuine health issues often get misunderstood within church culture as spiritual weakness.
Oh, that's damaging.
Incredibly. So instead of compassion and real help, they might get dismissed with platitudes like, oh, just pray more, or you need more faith. Or worse, they face shame, judgment, which just forces the suffering deeper underground.
It prevents people from seeking actual help.
Exactly. Dr. Mchavi has this powerful line that directly confronts that. Faith does not cancel feelings. Even prophets need a place to weep. That statement alone should change how we approach pastoral care.
That's such a vital point, acknowledging their full humanity.
Yeah.
The book also talks about the deep loneliness pastors feel.
Yeah, a profound sense of isolation.
And it's not just being set apart from the congregation who might either idealize them or criticize them constantly.
No, it's often an isolation stemming from the leadership structures themselves, the very people who should be providing care and accountability.
How does that manifest?
Well, they're expected to be endlessly available for everyone else, right? But paradoxically, Dr. Mchavi writes, they are often discouraged from forming peer support groups, places where they could actually find real camaraderie, understanding, maybe vent safely.
Discouraged. Why?
Fear of dissent, maybe, control. It's complex. But even worse, he notes, they are often punished for showing vulnerability, especially to superiors or peers. Appearing weak is seen as a liability.
That's just heartbreaking. Ministry is supposed to be communal.
Exactly. The shepherd leads the flock, yes, but they're also meant to be part of a community. Dr. Mchavi reminds us the shepherd is never meant to journey alone. Even Jesus had the 12. He had his inner circle, his support system.
About that, what happens?
This deep isolation, if it's just left unaddressed, it becomes, as the book says, scars that shape their ministry in painful ways. It's this slow erosion, emotional, spiritual, even physical, that drastically impacts their effectiveness, their joy, everything.
These hidden wounds come out somehow.
They do. As irritability, maybe cynicism, or sometimes, sadly, even leading to moral failures down the line.
And the impact doesn't stop with the pastor. The book talks about the unseen victims, the pastor's family. This part was really poignant.
Incredibly so, shedding light on burdens we just don't talk about enough.
Dr. Mchavi focuses particularly on the pastor's wife, often serving tirelessly right alongside her husband.
But typically unpaid, untrained for the immense demands placed on her, and completely unprotected by the church structure.
Held to impossible standards.
Impossible. Judged constantly for her appearance, her hospitality, how her kids behave. Subject to relentless gossip, criticism, often from what the book bluntly calls social cliques or girls' clubs within the church.
That sounds exhausting and isolating.
The emotional load is excruciating, a cross carried silently. Dr. Mchavi uses this really striking, heartbreaking quote. The pastor's wife has to carry a cross she did not choose, in a war she cannot win, for a crown she may never receive.
Wow. That paints a stark picture.
It really does. The thankless sacrifices made in the shadows. Expected to be a spiritual giant, an event planner, a counselor, a perfect example, all with no formal recognition or support.
And the kids feel it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The constant scrutiny, the unrealistic expectations, it creates this pervasive culture of performance rather than authenticity in the whole household.
I can't imagine growing up like that, always feeling like you're on display, any mistake reflects badly on your parents or the church.
It can have a profound, lasting impact on their emotional and spiritual health. Resentment, isolation, private grief. The family, which should be a safe haven, becomes just another stage for public judgment.
So when you connect all these dots, the personal struggles, the family impact, it becomes clear these aren't just isolated incidents.
Exactly, they're symptoms.
Symptoms of deeper systemic problems baked into the church's structure, its culture, its power dynamics.
Right, we're moving from looking at individual hardship to seeing patterns of organizational dysfunction. And that leads us directly into part 2 of the book, Systemic Challenges and Exploitation.
Okay, let's unpack these systemic challenges then. First up, Dr. Mchavi talks about the shift in deployment, from vision to control. He explains how this system, especially in Pentecostal and charismatic circles, wasn't always like this.
Right, he traces its origins. It was initially conceived as something powerful, a cornerstone of growth, innovation, and strategic leadership development.
So the original intent was positive.
Very much so. It was seen as a divine strategy to accelerate gospel spread. The idea was to place gifted leaders where their specific anointing could have the biggest impact, move people around strategically to foster growth, and keep things fresh.
Like putting the right player in the right position on the field.
Exactly. Dynamic, empowering, a system designed to place leaders where their strengths would yield the greatest kingdom harvest. That was the vision.
But then, something changed. Dr. Mchavi chronicles what he calls the quiet drift.
Yeah, a gradual, almost insidious shift. This system, meant as a springboard for spiritual deployment, slowly morphed into, well, a cage of ecclesiastical control.
A cage.
Pastors who were once celebrated for being innovative, for preaching boldly, for maybe connecting really deeply with their congregations. Suddenly they started getting labeled too independent, unsubmissive.
Challenging the central authority.
Precisely. It's a chilling shift from empowering leaders to suppressing them.
How does a system designed for growth become a tool for discipline?
The book shows how deployment stopped being about strategic mission and started becoming punitive. A tool used to quietly remove pastors who perhaps preached too strongly against internal issues, or thought too freely, or maybe just loved their local flock too fiercely, making the hierarchy nervous.
That's a serious indictment.
It is. Dr. Mchavi's quote is stark. When deployment becomes a disciplinary tool, the church ceases to send shepherds. It starts to shuffle pawns. Spiritual leaders become disposable assets in a power game.
Pawns in a bureaucratic chess game instead of shepherds on a mission. And the result was
The rise of bureaucratic loyalty. Leaders who are agreeable, who prioritized managing the organization and keeping things quiet over genuine mission or spiritual transformation.
which stifles creativity.
Absolutely. It discourages bold, visionary leadership. And the tragic outcome, as the book warns, is when preservation of power becomes the goal, the power to preserve people is lost. Priorities get completely skewed.
And this shift has knock-on effects, right? Leading to this idea of silencing the shepherd, control over ministry direction.
Directly. Dr. Mchavi gives some really concrete, frankly disturbing examples. Pastors being explicitly told, don't preach on that.
What kind of topics?
Often sensitive ones. Things like poverty, social injustice, politics, even mental health. Topics labeled divisive or controversial because the goal becomes keep the people happy, not holy.
Keeping things comfortable, not challenging.
Exactly. It creates this kind of lukewarm, surface-level gospel that avoids the hard truths.
I remember that anecdote of the book. An elder saying a sermon was too complicated.
Right. And it wasn't about intellectual density. It was because the sermon tackled something the leadership found inconvenient. It was censorship disguised as concern for clarity.
And this pressure, it must lead to a compromised conscience for the pastor.
A terrible internal struggle. They find themselves pushed to endorse questionable fundraising or to water down core theological beliefs just to maintain institutional loyalty or, frankly, keep their job.
That quote comes back again. When your calling is tethered to your salary, the pulpit can feel like a prison.
It really does capture that feeling of being trapped. Your divine calling held hostage by financial realities. You become an agent of the institution's comfort zone, not necessarily God's unvarnished truth.
And it disempowers them as leaders, too. Makes them feel like executors, not visionaries.
Absolutely. The book shows how their authority gets overridden constantly, in ministry planning, in developing care strategies for their own flock.
Like they want to start a mental health group, and leadership says no.
Exactly. Or their time for counseling gets severely restricted. It reduces them to administrative assistants rather than the spiritual leaders they're called to be, the ones who actually know the needs on the ground. It's incredibly frustrating and demeaning.
What's the long-term impact of all this control?
Dr. Mchavi calls it the slow death of authentic ministry. This constant pressure, this environment of constraint. It leads to self-censorship. Pastors start policing themselves. Disillusionment sets in. Spiritual suffocation.
The passion just drains away.
It does. The book nails the irony. It's a painful irony. The very place where a pastor is meant to speak truth becomes the place they feel most muted. The prophetic light just flickers and fades.
That's incredibly heavy, especially knowing the passion most start with. And it connects to another destructive pattern, undermining authority, the destructive power of indirect criticism and public scrutiny.
Yeah, this often starts subtly, doesn't it?
How so?
With whispers, side comments, things that sound almost harmless like, was the sermon really deep enough today? Or, I miss how Pastor so-and-so used to teach that.
Little bigs.
Exactly. Designed to slowly chip away at their credibility, discredit them quietly in the eyes of others.
And then it escalates to sidelining.
Right. Where boards or influential figures start making key decisions about money, staffing, major church plans, completely bypassing the pastor. It sends this chilling message. We don't trust your leadership.
Even if it's unspoken, the message is clear.
Crystal clear. It makes the pastor feel irrelevant, powerless, left out of the loop on things central to their role.
And then comes the really damaging stuff. Public criticism.
Which the book emphasizes is incredibly demoralizing. When a pastor's theology, their decisions, their competence are openly questioned, picked apart.
During church meetings.
Yeah.
In the parking lot. On social media.
All of the above. It inflicts this profound spiritual injury, not just on the pastor who's being shamed publicly, but on the whole church watching their leader being disrespected.
There's that quote again. When you rebuke the shepherd before the sheep, you don't just shame the shepherd, you scatter the flock.
Exactly. It breeds confusion, mistrust, division, the very things a healthy church fights against.
And this undermining, it creates a whole chain reaction.
A destructive one. It leads straight to pastoral burnout, pastors leaving ministry altogether. It sows confusion and infighting in the congregation. The church loses its vision, its momentum.
And there are spiritual consequences, too.
Dr. Mchavi warns strongly about this. It results in a grieved spirit that actually hinders revival, hinders real spiritual growth. His warning is stark. God cannot bless what dishonors his order. Where there is no honor, there will be no oil. This isn't just about bad management. It's about violating spiritual principles.
Which brings us back in a way to financial manipulation, the quiet chains of dependence. Because the book calls this one of the most insidious forms of leadership abuse.
It really is insidious. Pastors are kept intentionally underpaid. Often there are these vague promises, oh, things will get better, a raise is coming, but they rarely materialize.
Keeping them dependent.
Exactly. Perpetually dependent on the leadership's goodwill or the congregation's generosity makes it almost impossible to achieve any financial stability or independence.
And if they raise concerns.
That's where the guilt tripping comes in. It's cruel, really. They get hit with these dismissive, spiritually manipulative phrases.
Well, what?
Oh, brother, you're doing this for God, not money. Or, come on, we're all sacrificing for the kingdom here. Statements designed to disarm them, shame them for even thinking about their own needs.
And it reinforces that dangerous idea that suffering financially somehow makes you more holy.
A truly dangerous theology. It basically lets the church off the hook for its responsibility to care for its workers. The book is crystal clear. A divine calling should never require crucifying your family's well-being.
So it's dependence, it's a power play.
Absolutely. It forces pastors to compromise. They fear speaking truth. They can't afford to take needed time off. They get pressured into doing multiple jobs without compensation.
Because they can't risk losing the little income they have.
Precisely. As Dr. Mchavi states, the moment your provision depends more on people than on God, your calling becomes negotiable. Your purpose gets held hostage by human systems of control.
And the toll of this.
The cumulative emotional toll is immense. Unrelenting fatigue, deep spiritual burnout, physical exhaustion. It leads to, as the book puts it, a weary soul gasping for relief.
Just constantly running on empty.
Constantly in survival mode. And there's just no room left to flourish, to lead effectively, to enjoy the calling.
Wow. Okay, so all these struggles, these systemic issues, they paint a really urgent picture, a system needing serious change. Which brings us to part 3, the need for reformation and healing. How does Dr. Mchavi suggest we start breaking the cycle from struggle to strength?
Well, importantly, he frames it not just as fixing procedures, but as spiritual warfare, a holy confrontation of long-standing, normalized dysfunctions.
So it's deeper than just policy changes.
Much deeper. It requires, he says, a soul-deep transformation, changing what we fundamentally believe is possible, not just tweaking what we do.
And a key part of that transformation is
fiscal independence for pastors. Dr. Mchavi argues passionately for the church to shift its whole mindset. Stop seeing pastoral care as charity, like a handout.
And start seeing it as a kingdom investment.
Exactly, ensuring fair, consistent, sustainable compensation. Not as a perk, but as a basic biblical principle. His point is blunt. Pastors cannot lead boldly if they're living anxiously. If your mind is constantly on survival, how can you focus fully on spiritual leadership?
Makes sense. And this goes beyond just the salary, right?
Yeah.
Building sustainable support systems.
Absolutely. Comprehensive long-term security, things like actual pensions, proper health insurance, housing support where needed, funds for ongoing education.
And normalizing mentorship.
Yes. Real mentorship, where experienced, healthy pastors guide emerging ones without it being about control or competition. This isn't a luxury list. It's strategic investment in the church's future health.
And part of that sustainability is rest. Rest and renewal.
Which is so often tragically neglected in ministry culture. The book hammers this home. Retreats, sabbaticals, and time for rest are not optional, they're essential.
It's not about being lazy.
Not at all. It's acknowledging human limits, acknowledging God's design. Dr. Mchavi asks pointedly, even Jesus rested. What makes us think we don't need to? It's about obeying a divine rhythm, not seeing rest as weakness. Ministry's a marathon. You need pauses.
And that feeds into holistic health, more than just physical.
Way more. It means normalizing access to professional therapy, counseling for emotional and mental well-being, getting rid of the stigma around seeking help within the church.
And physical health matters too.
Definitely. Providing resources like gym access, maybe wellness stipends. The book lays down a profound truth. The soul you neglect will sabotage the ministry you build. We have to see pastors as whole people, not just spiritual machines.
This leads naturally to empowering the shepherd, investing in wellness and growth. How does the book suggest we do that?
By putting our money where our mouth is, essentially. Budgeting specifically for ongoing education, theological training, professional coaching, ministry retreats. This is a direct, tangible investment in the pastor's development.
So it's not an expense, it's an investment.
Exactly. When a church commits resources here, it's actively sowing into the harvest of your church's future. It shows they value their pastor's growth, helps keep them sharp, relevant, equipped.
That's a powerful shift, moving from just expecting output to actually nurturing the person.
It is. And protecting their well-being, dedicated mental health support, physical health resources, ensuring ample time off like sabbaticals and real vacations.
Yeah.
It's not just kind, it's strategic for long-term health. It reinforces that idea. Rest is not a luxury. It is obedience to God's rhythm.
And mentorship comes up again here as crucial for growth.
Dr. Mchavi calls it a game changer. It fosters character, imparts wisdom, cultivates excellence across generations. It's about intentionally pairing seasoned, healthy leaders with emerging ones, creating safe spaces for honest talks, sharing struggles, navigating challenges together.
So no one feels like they're stumbling through it alone.
Precisely. Bridging that gap between the calling and the practical how-to, passing on lessons learned.
Okay, building on that support, we need structure. Building sacred safeguards, accountability and support systems. How does the book frame accountability? Because that word can sometimes feel threatening.
Right. And Dr. Mchavi tackles that head-on. He redefines it, presenting accountability not as a weapon, not as a tool for control, but as a shield, not a sword.
A shield.
Yeah, a protective mechanism designed to safeguard integrity, prevent abuse, foster health within leadership. His line is key. Accountability does not weaken spiritual authority. It refines it. That's a paradigm shift.
So how do you build that kind of protective accountability?
He advocates for creating a feedback-friendly culture, one built on transparency, mutual respect, where feedback flows in all directions, up, down, sideways.
Not just top-down reviews.
No, including regular, honest check-ins on the leadership's emotional climate, relational health, moving beyond just ticking boxes on performance reviews.
And practically, how could that work?
One really practical idea is establishing a pastoral review and support committee, made up of diverse, wise, spiritually mature people from the church or denomination.
What would they do?
Their role would be proactive, regular wellness check-ins with the pastor, discussing goals, offering support, helping navigate conflict constructively. The core idea is powerful. The weight of leadership becomes lighter when it is lifted in community. It's about shared care.
It also ensures the pastor has a real seat at the table.
Right. Exactly. Involving them meaningfully in strategic planning, budgeting, major decisions, elevating them from administrators back to empowered spiritual leaders whose insight is valued, restoring their proper influence.
And these safeguards also help spot red flags.
Crucially, they help recognize those subtle manipulations being pressured on sermon topics, avoiding uncomfortable truths, and importantly, breaking those insidious chains of financial control we talked about.
Because, as the book warns,
Yeah, that stark warning. When a pastor must choose between truth and a paycheck, the church has already lost its soul. These safeguards aren't just protecting the pastor, they're protecting the church's integrity.
This powerful call leads to the final section, embracing reformation, moving forward with purpose. Dr. Mchavi poses a pretty direct question, doesn't he?
It really does. He challenges the church. Is the church still relevant in fulfilling the divine mandate, especially in our rapidly changing world?
And reformation, in his view, isn't about changing core beliefs.
No, not at all. He defines it as a sacred return, not rebellion, not doctrinal compromise, but a reevaluation of our structures, our methods, to make sure they actually serve the unchanging gospel mission effectively today. It's adapting without compromising the message.
He's changed the methods, not the message.
Precisely. The gospel is timeless, but how we deliver it has to evolve. The book asks that provocative question. If the early church turned the world upside down without microphones, what should we be doing with megabytes and microphones today?
It's a call to use every tool available.
TikTok, podcasts, live streams, social media, whatever connects, using innovation in service of the ancient faith with that same disruptive power.
And he proposes a framework for this reformation. 5 pillars.
Yes, a really solid framework. Theological precision, sound beliefs guiding practice, leadership diversification, empowering more gifts and voices, social justice, actively engaging inequities, spiritual authenticity, beyond performance to real encounter, and institutional accountability, robust systems for integrity.
It's a holistic vision.
Absolutely, because as he says, if our altars are full but our communities are starving, we have missed the mission. The church has to impact every area of life.
And that leads to this innovative idea, two-dimensional leadership. What's that about?
It's a really pragmatic proposal for structuring leadership, separating responsibilities clearly. On one side, you have spiritual oversight. This stays with ordained pastors, theology, spiritual direction, pastoral care. On the other side, administrative governance. This gets handled by trained professionals, people skilled in finance, law, HR, project management, engineering.
So leveraging different kinds of expertise.
Exactly. Dr. Mchavi argues this creates a new wineskin fit for growth and sustainability today. It lets pastors focus on their core spiritual calling, while skilled administrators ensure the house is in order.
Is there a biblical basis for that?
He points to examples: Moses appointing elders for administration, David organizing the kingdom, even Jesus delegating. The point is, as he puts it, revival requires not just fire on the altar, but order in the house.
So it's about honoring the past, but rethinking systems for today's reality.
Precisely. Acknowledging that what worked in a simpler, slower world is not necessarily suited for the speed, scale, and complexity of today's realities. It's a call for a graceful, strategic shift to a more effective model.
It really is a powerful, hopeful vision. A church that's spiritually alive and strategically sound, built on justice and care.
Yes. It's about making a lasting, transformative impact, moving beyond just temporary highs to build real spiritual health and societal change.
And that transformation really has to start with us, doesn't it? Acknowledging the humanity of our pastors, committing to supporting them as whole people.
Without a doubt, the health of the church, its future, it's tied directly to the well-being of its leaders. When shepherds are sustained, not sacrificed, the whole body thrives, and that impacts communities far beyond the church walls.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dr. Andy Mchavi's Beyond the Pulpit, we've really tried to pull back the curtain on the often unseen reality of pastoral suffering. We've looked at the systemic issues fueling it and explored this urgent need for holistic care, real accountability, and strategic reformation.
It's clear that Beyond the Pulpit isn't just a book, it's a clarion call, a call to every church member, every leader, everyone who cares about the church, really, to move from maybe complacency to courageous action.
Yeah.
Dr. Mchavi's own story, witnessing injustice and then choosing to be part of the solution, an antidote to religious toxicity, it's genuinely inspiring. It really pushes all of us to look at our own roles.
It does. His insights hammer home that justice and mercy aren't optional extras. They're central to the mandate. And that the church risks losing its moral authority, its voice, when it defends broken systems, talks about the sacredness of the pulpit, but neglects the actual messenger standing behind it.
Well said.
So what does this mean for you listening right now? We really hope you'll reflect on this. Think about your own role in your own context. Are you part perpetuating these cycles, or could you be part of breaking them? Just seeing your pastors as human with real struggles, real vulnerabilities, real needs, that's the crucial first step.
And Dr. Mchavi leaves us with this really provocative thought, something to chew on long after this conversation ends. The church stands at a crossroads. We can continue in silence, or we can speak up. We can defend broken systems, or we can rebuild them. But we cannot do both.
Wow. That puts the choice squarely before us.
It does. The health, the longevity, the real impact of ministry going forward, it depends entirely on our willingness to choose change and to choose it now.
That's a powerful challenge. Our hope, echoing Dr. Mchavi's vision, is for a church where the shepherd is not sacrificed, but sustained. A church where that leads to lasting revival, genuine flourishing, and a truly powerful, authentic impact on the world around us.
It's about restoring honor, healing wounds, and reclaiming the church as a place of refuge and restoration, not silent struggle or rejection.
Absolutely. And if this conversation has resonated with you, if these truths feel familiar or important, please engage further.
Yeah, drop your thoughts, your questions in the comments. Remember, we're engaging live. And to really dig into these insights and support this vital conversation, please grab your copy of Beyond the Pulpit. It's available now at www.amazon.com, author Dr. Andy Mchavi.
Thank you so much for joining us on this important deep dive today. We look forward to hearing your reflections and continuing this conversation.
Ada and Chloe taking the mic, exploring the world deep and bright. From mysteries to things you know, dive in with us, let's start the show. Deep dive, let's take a look. Stories untold like an open book. From Publications, here we go. Adam and Chloe steal the show.